Hi everybody. I'm going to have to use my laptop as well because the teleprompter doesn't have my notes on it. So if you give me 1 second, maybe I'll just stand here then. Okay. Is this the little slidey thing? Excellent. So my name's Malcolm. Hi everybody. I was always told that when giving a presentation, one must always start off with some sort of comedic humor or something like that. And one of the things I'm quite fond of is the Reddit joke thread. I don't know if anybody spends some time on there. It's quite useful. So a wife went to a software engineer husband and said to him, "Can you please go shopping for me and buy 1 carton of milk, and if they have eggs, get 6. A short time later, the husband comes back with 6 cartons of milk, and the wife asks him, "Why the hell did you buy 6 cartons of milk?" He said, "They had eggs." Thank you. So what I've done, I've been in the telco space, I've been in the ISP space, I've been in the managed services space, and about 1.5 years ago, I decided that, looked at the market and thought there's quite a gap for cloud computing. And specifically, the idea around it was to find a way to get people onto the cloud that wasn't difficult and to try and help them facilitate bringing networks and various bits on board. And we looked at the Terraco model and we liked it, and we thought carrier neutrality has its place, and it's probably one of those things that's really nice to do. So we thought, okay, cool, let's build a carrier neutral cloud. So what is a carrier neutral cloud? We envisioned it as a place where operators, consumers, enterprise can come onto the cloud platform, bring their own, what we would identify as layer 3 services or layer 2 services, if everybody understands those things. There's Google in front of you with most of your laptops, and bring those onto the platform and allow people to do whatever they want. So we looked at things like, well, how are we going to do it? And I think identifying certain elements on the networking layer, as well as the way that we would get people to plug into us, where are we going to do it, was a big question. Now, identifying a suitable data center in South Africa wasn't too difficult. One name jumped out, and we jumped at the chance to get into Terraco. And our cloud platforms in Terraco Joburg, Terraco Cape Town, that was the idea behind it. They're neutral, they don't judge you for what you do, they just give you cabinets power, off you go. It was very, very simple. One of the things that we looked at was, how do we regulate ourselves as a cloud provider? And one of the things we looked at was self-regulation. So we have a simple pricing structure. Everybody gets the same sort of pricing on our platform, and you get discounts as you commit to term and as you commit to bulk. Okay, so moving on from there. Did the click work? Yes, excellent. Our cloud is using VMware, and some of the underlying elements of VMware, like NSX for the firewalling, they call it an Edge Services Gateway. We use Dell servers for our compute, and we use NetApp for our storage. And some of the reasons we picked these things, in building a cloud platform, we wanted to identify a way to empower our customers. And as you've heard from a lot of the talks from Andrew and a few others, automation and self-service is quite key. So a lot of the elements of what we've done and how we've built it is around self-service, is around giving consumers the ability to do various functions on our platform. Now, I'm not going to go into a full demo and do all of those things, because that's really not my speciality. If anybody would like a demo, you can come see me afterwards and we can arrange a time to sort that out for you. Okay, so very quickly, I've worked on a lot of companies and helped them with their development models and ways to do things. Now, this is a nice picture that's taken from the internet. But the idea behind it is that in order to build something, one needs a playground where one can go and do all the things that one wants to do. So, for example, you want to delete and reinstall your whatever it is that you want to do. You need a development environment for that. And in the development environment, that's where you do all the things. Let's play, let's test, let's destroy, let's redo. Then what you should do is you should have a testing or a UAT, what we would call an integration, well, what I call an integration environment. And that environment is put in place for the mirroring of what happens in production. So it should be an exact copy of your production environment, where your customers, where you as the administrators of the platform can go and test various functions. And then obviously you have the production environment, which should be a very, very controlled environment. All of your change control processes and everything should be on production. So when you're going to deploy to user acceptance testing or to the integration environment, you shouldn't have to go through the whole change control procedure. Because imagine filling out a form just to put something on integration. I think what does happen is it gives you an idea of what's going to happen. When I deploy it to this environment, how will it affect my prod? And even in the year that we've had it, having the development and integration environment has really saved us a few times, because some of the software that we use, you know, these guys in their infinite wisdom, they release patches and then something breaks, as I'm sure you know. These things happen. So having this environment has been quite useful. Again, build it and rebuild it rules. I have a very simple rule in my company. Nothing should hit production without it being tested in integration first. I think that should just be the rule. You should test it, and test it again. Regression testing, automation testing, all of these facilities are available. I think documentation plays a key role. I've gone and consulted for many companies, and you ask them, your documentation, can we have a look at it? Can we see your as-built documentation? How does it all connect together? Do you have policies that govern how your cloud or how your network or how your whatever it is works? Do you have procedures? How do you update your servers? How do you run antivirus? How do you do all of these things? You know, if you have these documentations and various things in place, it becomes a lot easier to maintain and run a cloud infrastructure. You know, we were very lucky. We had the luxury of time, you know, leaving the corporate world and moving on to become a cloud provider does give you a bit of luxury. We had plenty of time to build this thing. My colleague Benjamin, who actually built it, he built and destroyed the platform 3 times, I think, from scratch before he was satisfied with the production build. So, you know, if you're in doubt, destroy it and start it again. There's no reason why you can't do that. I would suggest that having that and being able to get to the point where you're comfortable with your environment is quite important. Okay, let's go on to the cool tech stuff, because that's enough of that. This is a very bad Visio diagram. Sorry, this is not my speciality. A very bad Visio diagram of our network. And as Andrew mentioned, we are also looking to be moving to a spine leaf sort of topology. Now, at the top is our, I quote it as our layer 2 network. It's not really a layer 2 network. The spine fundamentally runs a layer 3 connection between themselves. For some reason, the line between them didn't come up. I don't know why. The leaves themselves run IBGP between them. Does this have a laser pointer? Pointer, boom, there you go. They run IBGP between them, and that's just sort of so customers can run their own IP address space and various bits and pieces. There's an MPBGP, EVPN. If anybody wants to find out what that is, come to the Cumulus talk tomorrow. I know the Cumulus guys are here in the room somewhere. They're doing a presentation on that. Also, Google's your friend if you want to know what those acronyms mean. There's an LACP bond between the hosts and the switches to the various leaves for failover. This all sort of makes sense. As I said, between the spine to the spine is a layer 3 network. The leaf switches have some sort of lag mechanism and IBGP between them. We looked at a few models, and I know everybody knows the old model of building networks where you have your core access distribution sort of model, and we looked at that at a time, and initially we started off doing that, and we figured it wasn't going to scale for our business. Our business is putting servers in racks and connecting racks to racks and doing all sorts of stuff like that. And the model for us didn't work. I think this is the model of the future. And if you ask a lot of operators, there are a lot of operators in this room. If you were to design a network from scratch, would you build a core access distribution or would you build a spine leaf? I think most people would look at it and say, this is probably the way we're going to go. I know it's a lot of cabling, yes. because it is a lot of cabling, and that's probably maybe one downside to it. But this is probably the model we want to go. One other thing that we had to keep in mind, being a carrier neutral sort of provider, and yes, I am an ISP, but I really don't want to be. So if you do want to come onto my cloud, the more ISPs I can get on, the less I have to do, which is great. I keep IP addresses and stuff available for my APIs and my web interface. If you go to my website, it's my IP address. But okay, getting back to the topic. We didn't want to get involved in our customers' networking. As much as possible, we needed to disengage from how our customers use our platform. So things like automation, things we're using are Chef, Puppet, Ansible. Those names all ring bells. I don't know how they work, but somebody at my company is very good at it and he knows how they work. He told me to mention those things. We used to have a VPLS, but we replaced it with this sort of model. We ran VXLANs and all sorts of really cool things. If anybody wants a more in-depth on that, please come see me afterwards and we can talk through it. I know time's running late and I'm the guy before lunch. A couple of notes on our network. Automation is key. Right from the beginning, we decided that we were going to try automate as much as possible. We encourage our customers to use IPsec. It's a known tech, easy to implement. We want them to be able to encrypt their data between us and them, and IPsec seemed like the good way. As I said, EVPN, MPBGP, that sort of stuff, to allow multiple customer addresses. If you want to know how that works, come see me afterwards. We needed to be able to rewrite VLANs. This was quite important for our customers, both on ingress and egress. And we had to not get involved with our customer networks. I think that was quite important. Specifically for me, I didn't want to debug how people cross-connect with us. I just wanted to say, here it is, off you go. You're connected to our cloud. I think that's, sort of exactly where you want to be. Okay, let's go on to some real-world examples. How are people using our cloud? Now, there are a few operators in here and some customers of ours in the room. I don't know, can everybody see that diagram? If not, I can explain it to you. Imagine this part here. Oh, am I covering the thing? There we go. This part here is the sort of internet. There's a customer router. This is one of our Edge Services Gateway, one of those NSX things. We had a case where a customer wanted to get data from their site into our cloud. What we did for them is we allowed them to deploy an on-site NSX standalone image. It creates a layer 2 VPN and runs some sort of proxy ARP between their network and ours. And it allowed their network to be extended and their service to see our service. What did we use this for? They needed to do a migration into our platform. And this is one of the ways we were able to assist it over the internet. The layer 2 VPN is obviously encrypted, and it was a quite nice way. What other options are there? Well, DR is another way that you could use it. Cloud burst, for example, if you needed to add resources to existing infrastructure on site. This would be one of the ways you could do it. One of the things that we're punting is this concept of ISPs bringing your own IP onto our platform. Now, the top part there is supposed to be the ISP network in sort of a redundant sort of fashion with some sort of VLAN that connects to our infrastructure somehow. And then the ISP multi-tenants, their environment over there. So ISP tenant A, B, and C would get a piece of the ISP's IP address space. However, the ISP chose to cut up their address space. If they chose to assign them a /32 or /29, it doesn't become my problem anymore. It becomes the ISP's problem, which is great. The ISP have self-service functionality from the Edge Services Gateway down to the hosts. The ISP can, or the customer can manage their own infrastructure, so they can log into a fully automated portal where they can manage their networking here, manage their upstream, control individual sort of, you can see all of these have the same IP address because there's 3 separate VXLANs behind the edge gateways that the ISP is running. So we have a customer doing this currently. They're very happy with this model. They're supplying the internet services. I'm supplying the CPU, the RAM, and the disk. Okay. We had a case where somebody wanted to talk about enterprise mobility. They wanted to be able to give customers the ability to VPN into their cloud environment and at the same time access their office. No problem. Pretty easy to do. There's an SSL VPN client over there. Connects to the Edge Services Gateway. There's an IPsec running between there and there. This customer is not currently connected to us. They're connecting via the internet through their ISP. Their ISP is connecting to us. So they have an internet circuit with their ISP, and they have the ISP is connected to us. And somehow they manage to get this side to talk to that side, and they have this sort of enterprise mobility. The other thing that's quite nice, they needed LDAP support. I think they called it Active Directory, if anybody's a Microsoft guy here. They wanted to integrate Active Directory into it. It was not a problem. Active Directory was integrated onto the Edge Services Gateway, federated, and all those cool Microsoft terms. And they needed granular firewall rules. So they had multiple users that needed to access specific resources. So they had DBAs who wanted to only access the SQL servers, and they had an enterprise administrator who needed to access, I don't know why they were running Exchange in the cloud, their own Exchange server, but it wasn't a 365, it was their own Exchange server, and this guy was able to get onto his Exchange server and do what he needed to do. One of the exciting things that's come out is something called distributed firewalling. Now, in a previous life, I ran 4 PCI DSS compliant gateways for my crimes. I don't know why I decided to do that, but it was something I did. And if anybody knows anything about PCI and how it works, a lot of the in-out firewall ruling and DMZs and all of these things are very important to the way PCI works. And what distributed firewalling does is it brings the firewall rule down to the host. So this guy wants to talk to this guy. It has to talk to the little firewall that's living over here. It doesn't have to go all the way up to the top to come all the way back down again. And that removes the need for DMZs and ticks a whole lot of boxes of PCI. And I think from a security perspective, you know, it's quite a neat way simplifying your security sort of deployments on the cloud. Okay. So quickly, because I know I'm running out of time, stuff you only learn by breaking it. I'm a big fan of RTFM. Does everybody know what RTFM is? I'm a big fan of RTFM. I think a lot of people don't do that. They get given stuff and they don't RTFM. RTFM is read the something manual. So using the hardware vendor recommendation setting, I know it doesn't feel right to do that all the time, but it is probably a clever thing to do. They won't support you if you deviate from it. If they tell you to allocate this and you allocate more, they don't support you for some reason. Try and keep it simple. Hide advanced features from people who don't need it. You know, if you log onto one of our Edge Services Gateway and give somebody OSPF and BGP access, they're going to try and configure it, and they're probably going to break something. So you can remove that. You know, the self-service automation, all that sort of stuff, you can remove those features. Qualify your customers. We have a very strict process of qualifying customers. Can they use it? If you give it to them, do they know how to work with it? Say no often. How many people say no? How many people say no often? I think that's very important. Saying no often is very important. Change controls. How many people in the room use change controls or have some sort of change control methodology? That's not enough. That's not enough. Every single person that has a live production environment should be using change controls and have some methodology of getting somebody to check what you do. It is possible to do maintenance and not take customers offline. We have a process that our maintenance windows are not excluded from our SLAs. We have a 99.99% SLA guarantee on our VMs, or our VMs being up. We do not include maintenance, exclude maintenance from that. We include maintenance in that. If we do maintenance, your VMs are not going to go offline. That's how it should be. Document everything from the beginning. As I suggested, as built, policy and procedure documentation. And I strongly recommend building a NOC network. If anybody came to my talk last year, I couldn't emphasize this enough. Building a NOC network is very, very important. Okay, in conclusions. Vendor neutrality has key benefits specifically in cloud. Allowing ISPs to bring their IP onto our platform has opened a lot of doors for us. It's easy to connect. There's less big bang. I don't have to change my IP addresses to move to the cloud. I've got a customer there with ISPA. They have on-site servers. They are replicating those on-site servers to my cloud. When the on-site goes bang, nothing changes. The IP addresses move to the cloud using OSPF or whatever the methodology is, and everything just keeps working. Take time building a platform. Learn from your mistakes. Make mistakes and learn from them. Very, very important. Allow as much self-service as possible. The more you can empower your customers to do things that you would have to do for them, the more time you can be spending on Clifton Fourth Beach. Automate as much as possible. And there are plenty of documents and tools and methodologies available to automate. Choose your customers, vet your customers, make sure they know what they are doing. You can say no to a customer. And last but not least, say thank you often.
Thank you very much, Malcolm. We are 10 minutes late for lunch, but if anybody has any burning questions, otherwise you can ambush Malcolm and Tony at the lunch tables. Right, so you're going to...
Just a quick one before we go off to lunch.
Question.
Okay, we've got a quick
you
question.
didn't say that. You said burning questions. One question for Malcolm and one question for Tony. Malcolm, in your slide, you said use the vendor recommended setting. That scares me, because in my experience, vendors recommend settings that end up in you buying more hardware. So my question, is, how does that gel with innovation? Because if you're innovating, the vendors aren't recommending the settings. The vendors don't like networks that innovate. And if you want to keep ahead of the curve, you need to be innovating. And sometimes that means stepping way outside of those settings. So how do you correlate that? So that's my question to you. My question to Tony was, you talked a lot about NFV and virtualization. Have you guys walked down the road of virtualized backbone routers in the network yet, VMX, etc.? And what's the experience been like? And what are you using at the moment?
Thanks, Andrew. I get your points and I understand where you're coming from, but at the same time, I think there are certain times when you don't use the recommended settings and there are certain times when you do. If you're building a stable platform, and again, using the words quite loosely, stability and supportability are two things. I know that I can pick up the phone and I can phone my software suppliers and I can phone my hardware suppliers and they will support me no matter what. I have guaranteed SLAs with them, and within the parameters that they provided me, they will support me. If I have to buy more equipment from them and spend a little bit extra to get that support and get that comfort for my customers, I'm building an enterprise grade solution here. So being able to support it myself and have a team below me to support it and have that comfort that they can pick up the phone and phone anybody at any time within the parameters of our SLAs with our suppliers is quite important. You know, as I said, we've got a dev environment, and I can assure you in our dev environment we have tested and blasted everything. I was chatting to Arista. We were testing some of their equipment for a potential purchase, and I basically said to them, we broke it. We broke it in our demo environment because we wanted to stretch the limits and see what it is. So within our testing environment, we usually find out what the limits are, and 95% of the time, the limits of the equipment are within the parameters that the hardware vendor gives. Does that answer your question, Andrew?
Andrew, thanks for your question. So just to answer quickly, I spoke a lot about NFV. That's because with modern standards, you want to leverage off of APIs. So your NFV are actually supposed to be the idea is that it's software packages that you can have running on top of your cloud, and you can provision those your virtualized network functions using APIs. So that speaks to automation, and it also speaks to the workloads that you have on your cloud by reducing the compute processes that you use on your cloud. As far as your second question, we actually, I think 3 years ago, Watson, we have our ROT reflectors running on VMware. And so we have walked down that road already, and this is the evolution of that virtualization journey.
So I can just also answer to that. We have an ISP customer on our platform that's completely virtualizing their infrastructure. So they are becoming a virtual ISP on our platform. Their idea is to put their routers, their core routers that do their BGP and do their whatever it is that they're doing on our platform, and then use our switches as their sort of what you would deem cross-connect infrastructure. So yes, that answers the question. And again, coming back to that point, if you have the automation, if you have the tools available to do these various things that you're able to do, like I can use network virtualization as an example, our Edge Services Gateway handle all the functions of whatever a consumer would require out of their firewall. Whether they choose to use it or not is their choice. We don't force them to use it. We give it to them as a service. If they want to replace it with their own firewall or their own whatever it is, Andrew, so they can. If they want to use 1,000 Vs, whether they want to use 40 gates, whatever it is that they want to use, we will let them do whatever they want to do. And I think that's a key element, coming back to the networking stack and coming back to that. If you empower your customers to achieve greatness and do unbelievable things on the cloud, they will keep coming back and keep doing lots of things.
Thank you very much. Just before we go to our lunch break, okay, let me use this mic. A quick reminder. Thank you. A quick reminder on the peering session that we're going to have later, the peering personals. It will be later on this afternoon during our last session. That will include the whiskey buff, and obviously it will include the whiskeys that we had on earlier on the screen. And basically, if you're not sure what that is about, it's basically a chance for you to be able to give your networks 15 seconds of fame. Basically, it's like a network speed dating thing, if you can get what I mean. We'll invite you to the stage, and then you'll get a chance to basically attract peers to your network. Please don't hesitate to send your details to Nishal, and the email addresses are over there. So just basically send all your details to them, and then they'll be able to contact you and deal with all of that. So please send your ASN number, where you peer, your peer policy, and that's basically it. At the very least, that's the information you need to send. Please also remember to get your RIPE Atlas probes from Nishal. He's all the way at the back. I'm sure all of you know him. He's waving his hand. So please do get to him and you'll be able to get your Atlas probes. All right, let's go to lunch. Just one more thing. Somebody dropped some money. I'm not going to tell you how much it is. I'm not going to tell you what currency it is. So if you lost some money, just come to me and we'll take it from there. Ladies and gentlemen, let's go have some lunch.